This is the Note Closers Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closers Show. We are excited to have you as always and excited for the topic. Today is Monday in the office, and things are kind of off to a little bit slower start. First and foremost, I think we would definitely have to take a quick second and give a big shout out and have our prayers and thoughts for those that have been affected in Las Vegas last night, early this morning, with the mass shooter that took place out there. Vegas is over the last few years has often been a home to me for about a month out of each year for the most part, and so our families, the people, I mean, it's just a terrifying event to imagine to be at, because the area that it takes place at has been a place that we frequent pretty often, along with being at Mandalay Bay and Luxor and that whole neck of the woods. So just very, very sad, disturbing that has happened, but just unfortunate. But today we wanted to discuss with you on our next topic of how to make money in notes. We've been going through a little bit almost every day about a different aspect of note investing. And if you're listening on iTunes and on the podcast, I want to give a big shout out also to Friday's guest that we had on Friday afternoon. Katie Moton did a tremendous job talking about what she's going through in her. If you haven't seen the episode, you want to go check that out, download it when it's available. When we Facebook live streamed it, we were at over 600 downloads in the first basically 24 hours or 20 for that episode alone on the Facebook Lives on Facebook. So plenty of ways for you to be able to catch and watch our previous episodes. But today's topic is all about reinstating. Okay, what do you do to get the bar to reinstate? How is that, and why is that the most profitable way in note investing? Yes, wholesaling is one of the easiest way without any of your own money and your capital. Options are one of the cheapest ways to secure stuff that you can kind of wholesale off and move things into profits into your IRAs by using a $10 or $100 option fees we discussed. But reinstating is something that's big when you're actually closing with your own money. And that is really the first question that you're going to see when you're dealing with your servicers. You're going to be dealing with your special asset managers like the law offices of Daniel Singer, who we have on tonight at 7 o'clock for our Note Night in America webinar at 7 p.m. Central. If you're listening to this on the podcast, obviously it'll be up on iTunes and Stitcher and all those platforms after Monday for the most part, because it takes about 48 hours for it to hit. One of the things that you can do, if you like, is you can pull out your cell phone and you can text the word NIGHT, N-I-G-H-T, NIGHT, to the phone number 72000. Now, if you text the word NIGHT, not notes, but NIGHT to 72,000, it will send you a link to get registered for the webinars, and you'll be on a permanent register. All you got to do is basically register for the webinar once, and you'll be given invites to it on a regular basis every Monday night, so you don't miss out. So if you're listening on the podcast, Stitcher, iTunes, text the word NIGHT, N-I-G-H-T, to the phone number 72000, and you'll be registered. We're obviously expanding in a couple of little different technologies. Really excited about that. It helps people get connected without really missing anything. And of course, all our replays for the Monday Notes are on Vimeo.com, Vimeo.com/WeCloseNotes. But anyway, reinstatement. Let's talk about reinstatement. Now, I'm going to share my experience as a deadbeat borrower, because there was a period. I was out of college about 2+ years. Actually 3 years, now I think about it. Graduated in 2001, and roughly the later part of 2003 to early 2004, bit of a financial struggle. I'd been laid off, was struggling to make ends meet and was behind on our mortgage. We had a couple investment properties that were not going well. The only people making money on those investment properties was the actual realtor that sold us the property, because we bought them at full value, 80-20 mortgages. When you lose your job making six figures and you're living off of a private school teacher's salary at 30 grand a year, trying to pay 3 firsts and 3 seconds, 1 on your primary and 2 on investments, doesn't go very far. All right? Does not go very far. So I was a deadbeat borrower. So when I talk with borrowers, I empathize with that. It's not a fun time. When you get the mail every day, you're kind of stretched, you're kind of scared. When the mail, the postal service person knocks on your door to hand you a certified letter and you get to know them on a regular basis, yeah, that's not a cool thing, okay? It's kind of a very scary, it's a stressful aspect of it. But when you're talking to your special servicers or services or reaching out, that should be one of their first questions. When they're talking to the borrowers, when they're making the right party contact with them, hey, do you want to, do you want to stay or do you want to go? Can you start paying your existing payment on time? That should be like number questions 1 and 2. Are you in the property or do you want to stay? And can you start paying your existing payment? Because that will go a long way. Now, yes, to reinstate, I always like to have the borrower bring some skin in the game. Now, one thing you have to realize is if you flip it from the opposite side, like what the banks will do. Banks have stopped, when a person goes late in their mortgage and a person maybe tries to send in half a payment, the banks won't accept that. All right? Oftentimes the banks will just put that half a payment into an escrow account, and then once the borrower really does go late, they're going to send it back because they don't want to accept that half payment. Because if they go ahead and accept it and cash that check, it kind of stops the default amount. It keeps them from being able to go back and start the foreclosure process based on what they're behind on. Now, oftentimes, you got to realize if the borrower does accept it, cash it, and deposits it, then they can't really start the foreclosure process because they are accepting payment. They're basically virtually saying, okay, we understand you're late, but we're going to go ahead and accept the payments because we're greedy bastards, okay? Mm-hmm. What they want, though, this is why you often will see banks that are talking to the borrower and say, well, no, we don't want partial payments. We want the full amount. We want the full 12 months of payments. We want the full 2 years of payments. We want full 6 months of payments that you're behind on. Now, we all know 85-90% of America is one missed paycheck away from being in default because most people have no savings, all right? So they don't have a lot of money saved up, okay? Especially if they're out of work. And if they're not paying their mortgage payments, yeah, they probably don't have to save. They're at a point of having to decide, am I going to pay rent, my mortgage payment, or am I going to pay power? Am I going to feed my kids this week or this month, or am I going to pay for a house? All right. And it is not a decision that anybody wants to make. I am a firm believer that 90% of most Americans want to pay their mortgage. They want to pay their rent on time. They want to stay in the property. Most people are good people, except for the weird, lazy ass people that take advantage of a system, or the crazies that we see too, like we saw last night in Vegas. Okay. You have to realize that aspect of things, that not all people are bad. Good, bad things happen to good people all the time. I've gone through financial hiccups. I remember dealing with Countrywide, who was my lender at the time, of trying to negotiate with them because I was behind. I was behind by about 6 months. And, they wanted a big chunk of money. I'm like, I don't have that. I can bring this to the table and I can pay a couple $100 extra. And the time frame that it took trying to get a loan modification done, really just a forbearance agreement is what I needed. I didn't need to modify the terms because I got back to working in 6 month time frame where I was working in high tech for a short period of time before I got back into banking. But when you're talking to the borrowers, you just got to listen. What's going on? And it's going to sound a little bit like a country western song, okay? But shit happens. It is what it is. So listening to the borrower. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, I would like to listen on the phone calls. That's not going to happen. Most of the time, your servicer's not going to wait. Hang on a second. Let me call you first and conference you before we start making phone calls. That's just not going to happen, okay? What will happen is you can often get a dialogue going via emails. You can log into the online portals and see the comments back and forth. Like, right, Jen, you're seeing that with Madison Management?
Yes.
Speak up.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, she says. Oh, hang on a second. Yeah, okay, we're good. One of the big things you got to keep in mind is realize something's not plugged in here properly. All right, so I'm making sure of this. Boom, what's this go to? Oh yeah, it doesn't help with my the technical difficulties, a little glitch here. All right, we're good. All right, just double checking there. Plugged in the wrong cord this morning, but we're okay. Everything.
It's Monday.
It's Monday. So talking, you gotta realize that you're gonna see the chat roll. You'll be able to see comments most of the time from the servicer on what's going on with the bar. And that's why asking for your servicing comments, if you can get it, is a really valuable aspect of your due diligence. You can see if the bar is corresponding. You can see if they've communicated with the servicer. All right. Now, a lot of times after a while, people are just embarrassed. I can understand that. And they just quit opening their mail. They just quit answering the phone because they realize the number it's calling them every month is their bank or their lender, and they don't have an answer. Okay? So the thing you got to realize, if you get them on the phone, is not to call them ugly names. It's not to bash them down. Look, it could very well be you if something were to happen to you. It's to have a little empathy and talk with them. Now, but you also, before you promise them anything in a potential modification, always ask, hey, can you start making your existing payments? And this is why it's important as part of your due diligence to see what market rent is in the area. What's market rent for that same type of property they're living in? Because I guarantee they've already been looking. I guarantee if somebody goes more than 4 months behind, they're going to start looking at what market rent's in there because they know that other shoe is going to drop at some point. Okay? So that's a very valuable negotiation nugget. If their mortgage payment is less than rent, then that's really no excuse not to reinstate, not to start paying on time. Start paying again. All right? If it's the opposite, where rent is less than that their mortgage payment is, you're going to have to almost automatically realize, hey, I'm going to have to modify my side from the banking side to keep them in the property. Otherwise, I'm going to just end up having to foreclose and deal with a vacant house. And that's okay. But today's topic is all about reinstating. So what are some of the things? Obviously, besides looking at rent, I think we do a great job. One big nugget is calling the utility department and see power's on to see if the water's turned on, if your realtor drives by the property, or your Section 8 is, I guess you said, to box, electrical. It's important to identify those things. So, A, you don't buy an ugly piece of crap. Like I think a realtor this weekend drove by and very thankful. House looks in good shape, but stinks to
high heaven.
Stinks to high heaven, and we don't want a vacant house. But that's the thing you got to keep in mind, everybody. Hey, if you can reach out to the utility departments and they give you a lot of information, like, oh yes, they were in here last week, or they're on a payment plan. Look, if somebody's on a payment plan, that's not a bad thing. It shows you that they're being responsible. A lot of people won't make the phone call to the utility departments to even try to payment plan. A lot of people won't call the county for taxes to try to make a payment plan. They just sit their head, shove their head in the sand and they run and don't do anything. And those are the worst situations to deal with. Because if I can give you some options, but you've got to reach out to me. You've got to communicate with me. So any questions from anybody on their comments? Yeah. Was that a yes or no? Oh, no. Okay. All right. So the thing to keep in mind, when you're talking to people and you see those things, hey, they're trying to make a payment. Rent rate is higher payment. Or one of the things that we like to do is see if they've made a payment in the last 6 to 12 months. If the borrower's made a payment in the last 6 to 12 months and they've been in the house for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, that should tell you, hey, they probably want to stay. They probably just had a hiccup, out of work, laid off, sick, medical situation. Guy or gal's gone through a divorce, had a baby. We've seen a lot of these things.
We do have a question.
Yeah, got a question.
Tim Simmons asked, what's the best way to find out who the utility providers are? Actually, we can answer that.
Yes, I would love it if you guys answered this.
So we just basically Google who the county, usually water, since that's not usually regulated or deregulated, sorry. We just see if there's see if it's on, if the water account is inactive or active. So that's really about it.
Yeah, it's not a hard thing to do, Tim. It literally just Googling who's the county water provider,
Yeah.
who's the water company or the gas company that serves Apalaka County or whatever it is. Okay.
And I have a comment on the house that we actually got the photos on this morning.
Yeah.
When I looked at the notes when we called the water departments, they said it was on a septic, and when we looked at the photos, you could tell it was a real rural area. So
that might be an idea not to look at septics anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, I grew up on a septic tank.
Same.
Yeah, same Z's. He said over there. Okay, yeah, not a bad thing. But you start getting a septic, you're a little bit outside of town for the most part. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, we checking power, water, unless they're on a well. Then you go to the electrical side, and that's the one thing that's really deregulated. That's the hardest aspect to find out. So, but that's the thing to keep in mind. If there's not sewer, there's not water on, they're probably not paying on time. And I know I've walked into plenty of houses from doing short sales over the years where water was turned off. And I've actually seen this on a few of our note deals where the borrower is stealing water from the next door neighbors, where they've literally, they got a water hose running from the next door neighbors that they've buried, dug a little trench, tried to camouflage it, buried it, and are running it up the house through a window into the bathroom.
Interesting.
Yes, kind of interesting. I've seen that happen a couple times. I've seen it where there's like an exterior power supply or electrical outlet where they got same thing, extension cord plugged into that trench, power cord buried, power cord runs up through a window into the kitchen or in the bedroom or just somewhere. And it's kind of happening in there. It doesn't mean people are bad. They're just trying to find a way to survive. But if reinstatement is going to be your best return on investment because A, they can start paying again, being able to pay again, and bringing a little bit extra to the table, 3 to 4 months of payments. You don't need the full year or 2 years, but you can bring something. They can start paying again. You picked up that note at let's just say 50 cents of the unpaid balance. If you're paying at 50 cents on the unpaid balance, their mortgage was at a 6% interest rate or 5%, you instantly just doubled that ROI. So if it's at a 6% interest rate and you bought it at 50% unpaid balance, that's easy. That's a 12% ROI. Now add in 4 months extra payments, okay? That's a pretty good return. That's basically getting now an extra 33% of payments for the year on stuff. So instead of going from a 6%, you're now sitting at a 14 to 16% ROI that first year, if it's just off of that alone. Now, Katie Moton shared something on Friday about her, they bought a house, bought the mortgage. It was basically going to be about a 30% ROI if they reinstated, because they bought it at roughly 33% of the unpaid balance. And it was at a 9.9% interest rate, so that calculates that to just under 30%. But then the borrower paid $5,000 down towards total back payments. Wow. Yes, wow is right. So $5,000 down on what they paid $15,000 for the note. So instantly they get a 33% yield without payments coming in. Okay, that's phenomenal, and it's a win. It's a home run for her on that little deal. It's a way to make $15,000. Be really, really proud of a deal. It's an easy way just to raise capital if you're sharing the details of the deals as well on an ongoing basis. But you never know what people will do to reinstate. Some people will go who have 401ks or retirement accounts will go cash those in to pay the rearages or pay something. People will borrow money from friends and family. They'll go sell off the big screen TVs. They'll get rid of some of the toys and be serious about staying on time. But the beautiful thing is after you've got 6 months or preferably 12 months of on-time payments, it becomes seasoned as a reperforming note, and the value of that note goes up dramatically where you could sell it at roughly 80, 85% of UPB. What you're going to see reperforming notes sell at is at roughly a 12 to 15% yield. All right. So, I mean, you can sell a lot of reperforming notes off to IRA investors who want passive, performing note investors that don't want to deal with any of the workouts. They just want kind of the passive returns that come in. And so what you do is you take to calculate what kind of payment you would get on a reperforming note, take the payments, take the 12 months of payments, and just take the 12 months. I wouldn't put anything extra in there because usually your extra is all going to come in the first year. So take 12 months of payments and divide that by the interest rate that you're looking to sell. So if it's, you want to sell it at a 15 yield, taking 6 months of payments, let's just figure this out real fast here. So just, or take 12 months of payments, my apologies. So let's say their payment is $500 a month. 500 times 12 is $6,000. And if I wanted to sell it at a 72% or a 12% interest rate to somebody for performance, divided by 0.012, that means I could sell that note at $50,000. Okay. Now the thing is to keep in mind, if the unpaid balance is less than $50,000, I'm not going to sell it at $50,000. I'm never going to sell a note over what's owed. Okay. At that point, then I would figure out, okay, let's say, I'm also another thing, I'm never going to sell a performing note directly at the par. I'm going to leave a little bit of room in there in case it does go in default, that there is some room for that the buyer to be able to have a little flexibility. So let's just say 85% of $50,000. So multiplied times 0.85. So I would sell that note at 42.5. Okay, 42.5. Whoops here. So 42,500. I'm sorry. So if I take the $6,000 cash flow and divide it by 42,500, which is at 85% of the 50, that's a 14.1% ROI. And now that's great because I left the end buyer who's buying my reperforming note $7,500 to foreclose or to work on it. There's also maybe some very appreciation on the assets, or maybe a little equity above that they may not see. But I'm trying to get at, that's the way that you reinstating a loan becomes valuable, not only in the front end, but very profitable in the back end. Now, the one thing you've got to keep in mind is looking at that mortgage, looking at that note, make sure it hasn't been modified down already. Something that's ridiculously low. Now we see a lot of, and the interest rates at a 2% interest. It's a very low payment. Now, in those, you're not going to probably reinstate those, because the yield on 2% interest rate means you see a 4%. That's not a way to make money. Okay, not a very good way to make money. So then in those cases, most of the time, if they're not paying on a HAMP loan or a low interest rate, unless the borrower's bringing, I'm at 2%, I'm going to stay there. That's not going to happen. So you're going to fight the borrower and take them to foreclosure most of the time. But Nicole says we've got a question for people.
Yeah, Casey Lang asks, do you see a lot of extra payments for back payments around tax time as compared to other times?
That's a very good question. The question, once again, do we see extra payments coming around tax time, end of the year time? And I'm going to actually ask Jen to talk about that, because I think you've had a few borrowers mention that as well about, hey, bringing extra to the table around tax time, right, Jen?
Yes, we've had a couple that have basically said that they can maintain their payments, and then some that I guess their refund, different time that they filed, their refund was coming, and we had one that turned around and did a triple payment. So we got a nice like $1,600 sent over to Madison on that one. So. And then we tend to do that every year.
To get caught back up fully, right? Now, the big thing about that is, so the answer to your question, Casey, is yes, it happens a lot of times. Don't count on it, especially if 6 months out from tax season. Because we're not 6 months out, but we're literally 2 months from basically really 3 months. Because most people that are paycheck to paycheck, and there's nothing wrong with that, will take your last paycheck, last pay stub, the end of the year, and go file their taxes, especially the first week of February when they issued their W-2s or whatever. So, and then oftentimes they get a refund check there if they're doing H&R Block or somewhere where it's 6 weeks out. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Middle of the year, we don't usually see tax checks come in. This is kind of a rare situation with three payments immediately, which we'll take, right?
It's hit or miss. But it's about as hit or miss, or if you're actually receiving the payments, people say they'll pay you. So we've had a lot of people that we've made the initial agreement. We're waiting for them to make their first payment so we can actually do the modification. And those didn't come through, so everyone got lovely reminder emails from me on Friday,
Right.
Saying, "Hey, it's the end of the month. We didn't receive your payment. You know, we're gonna have to proceed with foreclosure eviction." But we'll see how the responses go once I start getting them back today.
Right. With it today being the 2nd of October, it's the first official business day. Rent, most rent's due by the 4th or 5th. That's what Wednesday or Thursday, or it's late. So that's the thing to keep in mind. People getting paid either on Friday or getting paid this Friday. We'll know. I mean, we've had a good chunk that paid.
Yes.
We had a good chunk of the people that we reached out to initially over the last 90 days have paid, but a chunk they're dragging their feet, or they're making partial payments, not making full payments. So those that don't make full payments, we'll be returning checks to them and say, listen, this is not what we agreed to. You've got to pay the full amount, or we have our special servicer, who once again we're featuring tonight at 7 p.m. The law office of Daniel Singer and having Daniel Singer on and Joel Markovitz on. And what they're going to do tonight is break down, kind of going through collateral file, and then also going a lot through a bankruptcy filing. I know Daniel's one of the best, if not the best, in the industry about going through that. This is going to be really exciting to see the videos, not the videos, but his breakdown on that aspect. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, on iTunes, go to vimeo.com/WeCloseNotes, and you'll probably be able to see the replays, which should be up at the end tonight if we wrap up tonight at 7 o'clock. If you're joining us live on Facebook here, go and get registered for that webinar. As always, all of you guys can always reach HT 72000. But going back to that, look, if the borrowers don't make a payment, they don't follow through what they're saying to get you reinstated, you either need to get them on the phone, or look, if somebody calls me and says, listen, my paycheck is a little late. We had one lady's like, listen, I can make a double payment. And I said, well, you get paid every 2 weeks? She's like, yes. So why don't you make a payment every 2 weeks? So it's not such a huge burden on you the first of the month. Make your normal payment, make your catch-up payment the second paycheck. And that was much more, oh, I can do that? Yes. Because whether it's a week or 2 weeks, as long as it's coming in, it's directly to you. Always want payments to go to a loan servicing company. We got a few of our borrowers sending payments to us, which we basically turn around, endorse, and send it right back to medicine to make sure we're not collecting or violating anything debt. Plus, it makes it a whole lot easier instead of us saying, oh, hey, so-and-so sent in $1,000. We're going to go ahead and keep that $1,000 check. That's not the best way to do it. No, it's not how it works. Now, we had a large check come in from the previous seller, which we've got to basically forward over to Madison, with the outline of what accounts it goes into, what escrow accounts, what extra payments went where. It was not the easiest thing to actually they sent over to decipher, but we're working through that. Okay. Jennifer's laughing. Hey, big check. Oh, yeah, great. Questions, comments from anybody? Look, reinstatement's a great thing. A lot of people want to stay. People want to make their payments on time. You have to realize that going in. Give them an opportunity, and I'm always glad to give a borrower an opportunity. But if they don't fall through what they tell me, I don't run a charity, everybody. That's why it's important to kick it to a special servicer or get your servicing company to start taking the actions to take that property back. Because for every month that a person is in that house and you're doing something, they're literally stealing from you.
You no pay, you no stay.
That's right. You no pay, you no stay. You might call me not Nazi. It says soup Nazi. No for you.
No assets for you.
No assets for you. Okay? Most of your investment you if you don't take the right steps to make things happen. So, guys and gals, reinstatement's your friend. Reinstatement's a great aspect of things. Do not make the mistake, okay? Do not make the mistake of not working with your borrowers. If you got a borrower that wants to make a payment, work with them. The biggest mistake that I made early on was not wanting to reinstate, wanting to foreclose and everything. because your reinstatements, your modifications, we start figuring out the yield on things and having cash flow coming in versus having to wait around and having just cash flow going out in attorney fees, foreclosure costs, and fix and flips. Not a fun thing. I see Miss Patricia has opted into the webinar. She just popped up on my screen. Good stuff, Patricia. And a few others. Get another question out there from the audience.
We have two.
Okay.
Christina Fuller, she says, if their payments are already quite low, under 400 to 500 range, reinstatements sure seems best, as I remember you were mentioning before. It's just very little wiggle room for a modification, right?
That's correct, Christina. Yeah, if they're paying $400 to $500 a month, there may be some wiggle room. It just depends on what you paid for the note. And until you know what you paid for the note, that's why you got to know what your ROI calculation is going to tell you. What's what you paid, what you're looking for, kind of yields, and what's your ultimate goal. Now, look, if their payments are for less than $500 a month and rent's $1,000, sometimes it may be better to have a discussion to discuss cash for keys or deed loan. Sometimes, look, Mr. and Mrs. Barr, I'd love to keep you in the property, but market rent's $1,000. Your mortgage payment was $500. You can't pay that. I honestly, I'd love to keep you in, but I can't afford to. Now, the rare circumstances like extreme elderly, handicapped, past, present military, we will make some exceptions for that. So I'm not being a total heartless bastard here, but what I'm trying to say, it's got to be a really extraneous or, a special example, special case for us to want to really go below that for the most part. Second question.
Second question is Casey Lang. He says, how long do you wait to start the foreclosure? And I guess he's talking about how many payments.
No, that's a very good question, Casey. One of the best questions people can ask is, how long do you wait till you start the foreclosure? 30 days. Honestly, because you can always suspend a foreclosure. Starting it is always the most integral key of it, because you can always go back and suspend it or delay it, but that's holding the feet of the bar to the fire. If you don't ever start the fire, there's no real forcing that bar. The bar has stayed in that property for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. They've never had anybody hold their feet to the fire. That's what you got to do. You got to start that timeline. You got to start that foreclosure process. At least get the attorneys involved, because oftentimes a letter from attorney goes open and the bar's going to be like, oh shit, I really do have to start out your ROIs. Because sometimes, look, we've had deals that we thought we were going to foreclose, and the bar showed up at the very end. So listen, I'll reinstate, I'll pay off, or I can now do this and I'm working again, and I'll work with them. But there's also been plenty of cases where we thought they would be reinstated. They said they wanted to pay, and they didn't show up, so we had to foreclose. And if we waited longer and longer to foreclose, it only hurt us in the long run, because it's our money we're putting out, or investors' money we're putting out. You have an obligation to treat that money well and work through it. In states where there's longer foreclosure process, you better start that really fast. Okay, another question?
Yeah, Riaz asked, do you wait to get the loan transferred?
Do I wait to get the loan transferred before I do a modification or foreclosure? You're going to have to wait for the loan to get transferred from the seller servicer to your servicer.
Before starting foreclosure.
Yes, you have to wait for it to get, you have to wait for the servicing transfer to take place before you can start the foreclosure process, because it's just sitting in limbo. Now, the thing you can do, this is why it's important to have a special servicer like the Lofts, Danielson, or even Polaris, where they're reaching out to the borrowers ahead of time and getting right party contact and finding out if the borrower is going to tell you to F off, or no, we're not going to be, they're going to hustle. Then hey, then by the time the 30 days roll by and the service takes place, then I ain't going to mess with them. Just go ahead and start the foreclosure. They told us to F off. Attorney, send your letter. Let's get this thing started. Okay? Good question, Riaz. Congratulations to Riaz and Hatham. They also closed on 6 new assets, I think, last week. So very proud of you guys. You guys are doing a great job. And it's a great relationship, too. You got Hatham in Houston and Riaz up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And they network. I know Hatham's traveling for work, and Riaz is very busy there as well with what he does working full-time. But I'm very, very proud of you guys that are working full-time making things happen. So I see David is registered for the webinars that popped up on the screen for the Note Night in America webinar tonight. So I know that when I last looked, we had about 250 RSVPs for it. As of about 10:45 this morning, it means we'll probably be closer to 400 to 500 people once the day ends up rolling around, once our emails go out. So any other questions from anybody?
Brady Durr has a comment. I think it's really nice. He says he thinks I think about how much the street will improve for the neighborhoods when people move in and they can afford the upkeep cost of ownership of above the P&I pavement.
That's a great comment, Brady. Yeah, exactly. Foreclosures do affect every market. This is why a reinstatement is so much better, or even a modification is so much better than a foreclosure. Now, I was at the Quest IRA boot camp this weekend, and just about every speaker there, except myself and actually Quincy and actually Tom Perry from the Houston event, Houston RIA that he runs there, was talking about going and getting assets and dealing with distressed borrowers from the floods, or dealing with, foreclosure statics. And when I got there, talked about foreclosure statistics is what I meant to say, not statics. I caught myself. I heard that little. The thing I wanted to say is that's the beautiful thing about notes. If we get them reinstated and modified, and we're buying on a smaller level, and I mean a small level, not like Bank of America is doing a ton of stuff or anything like that. We're buying stuff that never hits the foreclosure auction, never hits the MLS for 6 to 12 months. An effective way to not negatively affect that neighborhood. Because for every foreclosure that hits a neighborhood, it's going to depreciate the values, probably 10, 15, sometimes 20, sometimes $30,000 in value. And if you're in a domino phase where there's foreclosure, your value is dropping even faster. And I've seen this. I've actually been on the wrong end of this. I bought a foreclosure here in Austin. It was worth $300,000 when I bought it. Well, 6 months later, it was worth $180,000 because foreclosures devastated that market. It was dropping at 10, but by the time I was out trying to get out of the thing, it was worth maybe $180,000, and I was into it for more than that. So that's why reinstatement is so great. It keeps the values up. It can help borrowers keep that pride of ownership. Deed in lieu, cash for keys. It keeps the foreclosure off the MLS records, and then you can sell it as an REO and hopefully boost the values up, then depreciate the values. So.
Oh, question.
Yep, question.
Scott Van Campen.
Yep.
My understanding is that the first step of foreclosure is a demand notice. Once the borrower receives this, they have 30 days to respond. Therefore, the foreclosure doesn't really start automatically. The perfect time to find out about the borrower's story and work on work in reinstatement or modification. Do you agree?
Scott, yes, correct. You have to, the first thing it really sends out is a demand letter. That's correct. That's kind of what kicks it off. Demand letter is sent. Demand letter is sent. You'll see that in the notes, that most of the note sellers will tell you that's be an active foreclosure. Demand letter has been sent. And yes, they basically have 30 days to respond, and then boom, you're filing stuff and going from there. But that's always going to be the first domino that kicks everything off, is make sure the demand letter is sent. And the longer you wait for that, the longer and lower your ROI gets. So any other questions or comments from anybody out there? Nope. Vegas on Sunday night at the concert. It's just it's devastating. I know I was sick to my stomach. I was reading about that late last night, this morning. It's unfortunate we live in a society where that's becoming more prevalent. Makes you really wonder and try to plan your trips to be maybe less around it. But I think it's hard to plan around that action because it's just mindless tragedies that from mindless idiots for the most part that you can't control that. So and I don't care what you say about free speech or guns. That's not something that could have been avoided, unfortunately. I have to give a big shout out to the police and the first responders that responded in a timely fashion to help everybody out. I had friends that were literally just within seconds of who were in Mandalay Bay there, who basically within seconds and minutes there was action taking place of police bombarding Mandalay Bay to take that stuff out. So our thoughts and prayers with those once again. Keep those people in your mind, and we look forward to hopefully having everybody recover from that. So, but once again, guys, want to thank you for joining us on this episode of the Note Closer Show. I have to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Lawful & Associates, Quest IRA, just a few of our amazing cast of vendors that do such a great job. So once again, you can join us tonight at 7 p.m. Central on Monday night for the next episode of Note Night in America. If you're listening to this on Stitcher or iTunes or any of the other podcast platforms, you can catch that replay by going to Vimeo, vimeo.com/WeCloseNotes for all of our video replays, which we've got over almost 1,000 videos on there. So Once again, have a great Monday. Go out and make something happen, everybody, and we'll see you all at the top.